Hey there, soul sister. Welcome to another episode of Midlife Love Out Loud. I have Alexandra Harbushka in the house today. Hi, Alexandra. So good to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to it all week, so I'm excited to get going.
This is such an important topic. I always say that every week. And with that said, this is such a huge topic that so few people are talking about, which is herpes. And how to have a life with herpes and how to take the stigma out of herpes and how to date with herpes and all of those things. So this is a huge topic. I am so grateful for the work that you're doing in the world. And I'm so thrilled to have you here to share your journey and give some hot tips to this woman who might be suffering with this and know that love is still possible, even if you have herpes.
Absolutely.
So thank you. So let me let them know a little bit about you. Alexandra's life was sent into upheaval when she received a call from her doctor diagnosing her with herpes. Shaking, feeling like her life, her goals, happiness, and desires had all gone up in smoke. She was left scared shitless and with a new mission to share her story with people just like her and perhaps you, and to let them know that their feelings are normal, natural, and that they are not victims. With that mission in mind, she founded Life with Herpes, an online community consisting of a podcast, a website, YouTube channel, wellness products to support the skin condition, and an online community that provides support, all dedicated to shattering the stigma of living with herpes. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah.
Huge service. So yeah. Why have you decided to share your story, your personal journey with the world?
A great question. And I definitely got that question when I first opened up about it.
Yeah.
So when I was diagnosed with HSV1, very interesting. So I have both. I have HSV1 and HSV2. And I can get in a little bit later about what they are and the difference. But HSV1 for me was oral herpes. And I was diagnosed with that when I was 20. And it wasn't a big deal. There was no shame around it. It was like, oh, well, yeah. It's like kind of everyone has it.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went on with my life. Like I was kind of bummed, I guess is the only, not disappointed, just bummed. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I went on with my life. But at 28, I was diagnosed with HSV2 genitally. And that was earth-shattering. Just like you said, it was stigmatizing, it was paralyzing, it was suffocating. It was, you feel like you're a deer in the headlights. You feel like anything that you had wanted to accomplish in life now no longer mattered. You're detached from yourself. And it's kind of like, well, why did I work hard, or why did I go to college, or why did I do these things that I wanted to check off on my list of things to accomplish in order to get where I wanted to be in life? Why did I even bother? Because now I made a bad decision. And so now I have herpes. Right. So fast forward. So I was 28 then. Fast forward to, I was at the time 34, maybe 34. And, my boyfriend at the time, I was going to a podcast conference. I had a podcast. I was going to a podcast conference and I was asked to speak on something that was true to your heart, self-worth, self-love, and you had to talk about this experience. And so I had done this whole thing, made my PowerPoint slides and everything on getting into debt at age 25. And my husband was like, not for nothing, Alexandra, but everyone at 25 gets into debt. And it wasn't that much money. Like, a credit card, and you just, didn't quite understand it, And not that it's not a big deal. Yeah. But he's like, you should talk about having herpes. And I was like, there's no way. No way.
Your husband told you this. Huh. And
I was like, there's no way I'm going to get on stage and tell people this. So I did. So fast forward, I did, and I got on stage and I told everybody on stage, and it was also being streamed. And, so I shared that I had herpes. And when I did that, I noticed a couple of things happen. Number one, the room got really quiet. So it's a great way to have people stop texting.
It's like, what is she talking about?
Right.
Wow. Okay.
But more importantly, people came out of the woodwork and said, I have it too, and have never discussed it.
Yeah.
Or they said, I don't have herpes, but I have my own version. I have my own addiction. I have my own assault. I have my own whatever.
Yeah.
And so they said, gosh, I learned because of you being vulnerable and sharing, I now need to open up and share.
Yeah.
So to answer your initial question with that
Mhm.
backstory was, that's why I decided to do it. And I like to call it my Eeyore phase. We all know Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh. He has a rain cloud over his head and that's his life. And I was Eeyore for 2 years.
Yeah.
I
My
was
life
dying on the
sucks.
vine.
Who's gonna want me? I've got herpes. Something's wrong with me. I mean, I'm just throwing what I would think I would be thinking if that happened to me at that
Yeah.
stage. Would you say that's what happened with you?
Absolutely, especially at 28 years old.
Yeah.
You're
Oh, yeah.
you're
Yeah.
so young.
Mhm.
You're so green.
Right.
You're
And
so
my life is over. I'm in my 20s and no one's ever gonna want me. Like, yeah.
right. Right. And so I was there. I was in my Eeyore phase for 2 years. I stayed with the guy I got herpes from because I truly believed that I was worth less than the scum in a porta potty.
Oh, honey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Understandably.
Yeah.
I believed I did everything right, and it didn't make sense to me why I got herpes. I had sex with a boyfriend. How did I get this?
Yeah.
And so it's all these aha moments. And I realized I was turning 30 and I thought, I cannot be an Eeyore. I do not want to marry this guy. It was when I told him I had herpes because he didn't know, he called me names that were despicable and he kicked me
Oh,
out of his house. Like,
oh, that's so
and I
painful.
stayed with him.
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah.
Because you truly, because of what society has made a herpes, a genital, you have an STD, you have a lifelong STD
Right.
that you will never
Who's
get
going to
rid of.
want you? Something's wrong with you. I mean, and it's like, we were talking, I did that film, the Shed the Shame film, where I got naked and body painted. And for many, many years, I was thinking, who's going to want me? I have these big thighs and my boobs are not where they used to be. And, my idea of what a perfect body is, and I'm not that. So something's wrong with me. Who's going to love me? Let me just accept whoever, and so I can only
Right.
imagine,
Yeah.
because I know the conversations and the fear around STDs and what do you have? Do you have herpes? So you
Right.
stayed with this guy who wasn't treating you well.
Right. And I had already, dated and had some bad breakups and I'm like, man, now I have this. Nobody's going to want me. So
Yeah.
here's the beauty,
Yes.
because
Yes.
I get really excited. Sometimes I have to like calm myself down, but I've talked to thousands of people. And when I talk to people, I have a support group. And when I talk to someone and that person's crying inside, I'm like, I am so excited for you right now.
Mm,
Because what that person doesn't realize is on the other side of those tears, it might be a month from now, could be a year from now, but you are going to be a completely different person. And because you got herpes, you were forced to go through it. You had been teetering with it. You'd been treading with it, put your foot in the water. Nope, I don't like this uncomfortable feeling of figuring out who I really am.
mhm.
But now getting herpes has forced you to deal with any of those insecurities you had. So for me, it was, I didn't believe I was worthy of love because
Right.
I didn't love myself.
Yeah.
I no longer trusted men. I didn't believe men were good. I
Yeah.
didn't like, and I was like, well, that's not good. I didn't realize it.
Wow. Yeah. So good.
So
You're able to wake up and realize, like, whoa, this is not the kind of life I wanted. I don't want to have the ER life. So what was the turning point for you? You're doing the
turning
ER
30,
thing. Who's going to want me? I don't love me. What changed for you?
turning 30. And I thought, okay, I do not want to be single for the rest of my life. Number one, or I do not want to marry somebody in this state. So like, I didn't want to attract someone for me. You would attract the person that's kind of like dangling the carrot for you. That'd be like, well, no one else loves you, but I do. And I was in that state and I thought, that's not healthy. Yeah.
You're so smart for such a young woman. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, so I was diagnosed in 2011 and we have to go back to 11. When I went online and researched herpes, it was, it was like 3 websites. It was Planned Parenthood, WebMD, and the CDC. And it was very sterile. It was very straight to the point, bullet points. And I thought, okay, well, that doesn't help me. I already knew these things.
Yeah.
And so I started really working on myself. I started going to acupuncture. And within that, I was introduced to Wayne Dyer. I was introduced to Deepak Chopra. I was introduced to, I think at that time, Oprah started her like Super Soul Sundays. I don't even know if she still does it, but it was just all this, oh, wow, there's a whole nother side.
Yeah.
And I started that journey. And I thought, okay, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to I gave myself till the time I was 30 and thought, I can't be an Eeyore at 30 and one day. Like at 30, I'm done.
It's done. Yeah. Wow. Powerful, powerful, powerful. By the way, I am a licensed acupuncturist as well.
Oh.
I don't practice anymore. I mean, I have a few patients that I've, for like over 20 years. So it's like, of course, come have some acupuncture. This is my passion now, helping people heal and shed their shame. So what an amazing journey. I have a question for you. So you did your inner work, and obviously you chose to have a very different path. Here's a soul sister here listening who is like, I want to date. And yes, hopefully they're doing the inner work like you're talking about. And that's the stuff that I do with them, is to help them love themselves without apology and own that, that 30 and not another day, whether it's 50 or 60 and not another day. It's like, yes, let me have an amazing life and love myself no matter what. And now they meet somebody, or they're about to venture into a relationship. How did you do it with your husband? Because he was not the one that gave it to you. How do you, what kind of advice, or what kind of language, what might you offer as a starting point for someone who meets somebody and they have something like this and they're scared?
It's really important. So the funny thing about my husband was I actually told him the day I was diagnosed, but he wasn't, he was my colleague. So I told him as a confidant, because I walked into the office, pale white as a ghost, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And I lost it, of course. You're on the floor crying, like not something you want to do in an office, but I was on the floor crying. And so he knew as a colleague. So that was a different story. But when I was dating prior to him, I made the decision at 30. I'm going to go out and I'm going to date. And I'm going to go on a date with anybody that asks me. And I'm also going to ask anyone that I feel I need to ask. The funny thing too is, at the time, well, now dating websites are even bigger, but online dating. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do online dating. And so I remember sitting at my parents' house with my iPad and I was filling it out. And I think what happened was, at that time we had multiple Wi-Fi stations in the house. So I went to the other side of the house and like the Wi-Fi changed. And so what ended up happening is I never was able to fill out a profile. It just said that like, we can't fill one out for you. And I thought, okay, I take that as a sign. Like, I'm not supposed to do online dating. Got it. Okay. But I really want to differentiate. When we hear the word dating today, we hear the word sleeping together. We hear the word sex. And dating doesn't mean sex. Dating means you're going to go for ice cream.
Right, you're getting to know each other. You're spending time together.
Yeah. We've taken away this old tradition of courting. Yeah. And there's a beautiful phase in that. And that shouldn't be rushed. Right. And so I guess I should say I allowed myself to be courted. Like, I had fun. I went to ice cream. I went to yoga. I went for walks on the beach. I went to, out to dinners. I went to breakfast. I did all those. And so back to how do you disclose when you're ready to do that? I want to use the vision of, we've all seen the advertisement or a cartoon or something of the woman that's trying to lose weight. And we've seen the cartoon or whatever of, she has the ball and chain attached to her leg or arm of the scale. And she's dragging the scale everywhere she goes. So I like to say, switch that out for your herpes virus. We have this fear, like, I'm going to go on a date, but I'm bringing my herpes virus with me. I can't possibly go on a date.
Yeah.
And so I want wherever you are in that phase is like your herpes virus is coming because it's part of you. It's never going to leave you. You're guaranteed to die with it.
Yeah.
But you just need to say like, hey, you're not part of this, right? This is myself and whoever I'm on a date with. It's the two of us. I'm not getting a table of 3. You're not going to sit down with me.
Yeah.
And so there's so many people, especially women, that feel like, well, I have to say it on the first date, or I have to let this person know before I go out. And whoever we're going on a date with, especially as we age, he or she has something important that they needed to tell you. Whatever it is, they have some sort of shame themselves.
Everybody's got something to share for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to just go right back to there's something huge, in my opinion, around the herpes thing. It is something that people are like, how do I disclose this? That people hold a lot of shame. And again, we need to do the inner work to release that shame 100%. And how do you share it? And when? Because, and again, it really depends on the courting. I mean, sometimes the sex talk comes up pretty darn quickly. Like it just like first date, they might say, oh, just so you know, I've gotten tested and, I'm completely clean. How about you? So it can happen. Or when you feel the energy moving in that direction, you maybe had a few dates and you're like, wow, I really, really like this guy and I need to share it. How would you suggest?
So yeah, I was just going to say, wait till you are ready to have sex with this person. So you might be ready that first date, or it might be 3 months, and there's no time. There's no expectation. I've always said you do not need to disclose until you're ready to expose. So again, back to that first date. If you have no intentions of going home with that person, you don't need to bring it up. Yeah. So I always unless of course, like you said, you're on the date and the person goes, hey, I got tested. And then you can say, great, so have I, and you can get into that. So I always like to say, let's open with an umbrella statement. We don't want to just start off with, hey, I have herpes, right? And we don't want to show up, especially as women, we like to show up with, I've sinned and you're a saint. And we show up with, I'm down here and you're up there on the pedestal, and I'm going to ask you for forgiveness as I disclose.
Can you accept me? I'm so broken and horrible and tainted. Can you love me versus let's be adults and have a conversation here?
Right. And I'll get into why rejection happens in a little bit, but remember to show up as an equal. This person you're going to meet, he's had sex before, and either the stars aligned or didn't align for him to get herpes. So open with a conversation of, and before that, I want you to understand, what are your expectations out of this relationship? Is it open? Is it closed? Are you exclusively dating? Are you exclusively sleeping together, but you're also dating multiple people at the same time? And come to that conversation with these things in mind, because when we can talk about these things and all the cards are on the table, people's feelings don't get hurt, right? Or they are less hurt. And if you don't agree, if you're like, no, I want to be monogamous with you, and the person's like, well, yeah, I'll be monogamously sleeping with you, but I have a date with someone next door and that doesn't work for you, forget the herpes talk.
Right.
You don't even need to go there.
And I just want to underline that, which is, before you have any of these conversations, know the kind of relationship you want. Know thyself. Because venturing into that realm, it's like, what's the point if you don't even know what kind of relationship you want, what kind of person you're looking for, what your future looks like? I mean, not that you're going to have all of those answers. However, I always say it's the North Star. At least have a good sense of what your North Star of a relationship looks like before you venture into that conversation, for sure.
Right. So if those things don't align, you don't even need to have the herpes conversation. Right.
Gotta fit. Exactly.
Right. So that's why I say you want to open with all these other things. Then let's say everything aligns, you guys are in agreement, the chemistry is going. That's when you have the conversation about, let's talk about sexual health. It's not how many people have you slept with, or it's sexual health. Here's why it's important to me. It's really important to me that we get tested. If birth control is something that's still a necessary thing, that's when you bring up birth control. And we say, this is why it's important to me. I've recently been tested. I was negative for these things, and I'm positive for this one. And you go into having herpes. And that's why I'm very adamant about having this conversation, because a lot of these STDs can be dormant. You don't know you have them. The symptoms are different from men and women on different STDs. And so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And so that way it's just more of a, we like to put this, our brains are really good at like worrying about something in the future that hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
But when we bring it to we're in a partnership together and
Yeah.
we're going to figure out what works for us.
Beautiful. So good. Yeah. And we're not taught a lot of this in school. We're not
Never.
taught about sexual health. I mean, things or the lack of things that we're taught about, let alone communication. I mean, we're not taught
Right.
how to communicate any of these things. So I'm loving this. Thank you so much. What were you going to say? Yeah.
Well, it's like in school, we, you know, or teenagers, they get their learner's permit and they have it for 6 months to a year before they can drive a car. Right. And so we spend time with our teenagers, teaching them how to drive a car. And sex is the same, is equally, it's like, it's just as big of a deal. Driving a car inappropriately can lose a life, and
Mhm.
having sex inappropriately can create a life, right? Like not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we just say like, oh, just don't get pregnant, or just wrap it up. Right. And it's, if you use the analogy of just throwing your 16-year-old keys to the car, you'd be like, what are you doing? And
Yeah,
yet we do
crazy.
that to our teenagers.
Yeah. Yeah. And they don't know. And then
They
it's
don't
like,
know.
yeah.
Earlier I said I was going to talk about rejection because that's what really
I
holds
would
us back.
love to talk about that. And I also, and you know, whether it's in this piece or another, or the next piece, which is how to not only have that conversation, but if somebody is fearful around getting it, oh, I don't have anything, you have it. And there's that fear of rejection because now they're scared of getting it. How do you maneuver that conversation as well? So maybe,
Excellent.
you know, put it all together.
Excellent. Right. So rejection is a part of life, right? Rejection happens regardless. I was rejected before I had herpes, and I was only rejected one time after I got herpes, but because people are like, did you get rejected all the time? And I'm like, no, I actually didn't.
Mhm.
So rejection, and again, that goes back to our shadow work, that goes back to our inner child, that goes back to the ego.
Mhm.
Ego doesn't like to be hurt. It wants to be perfect, and it doesn't understand, and it's going to do everything in its power to keep you from being hurt. And in your mind, rejection is going to hurt you. So let's just define what rejection is and why it happens, specifically dealing with herpes. So I've boiled it down to 3 things. Number 1 is the person is just not emotionally capable of having this relationship or this conversation.
Yeah.
You can be 15, 55, 75. That person's just going to be silly about it and like, oh, you know, they just can't have the conversation. They just doesn't work for them. Number 2, the person is married to a concept about an STD or herpes that's never going to change, right? It's like you can't convince a Catholic to be Jewish and a Jew to be Catholic. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work, right? So same thing is if that person, so in those 2 situations, you're either emotionally mature or you're just married to a concept,
Right.
that right there,
Right.
back
Yeah.
to your personal boundaries, that's just not the right person for you.
Yeah.
Even if, oh my gosh, I've never felt butterflies like this. I was swept off my feet. If that's not aligned, the relationship would have come to an end, whether it's 6 months, 3 weeks, 6 years. It just wasn't
100%
right.
agree. 100% agree. Mhm.
Right. And the final one, which is the one that really hurts the most because we can't understand it, the person's not into you. Period. The end.
Yeah.
Not into you. Like it's just not going to happen. It didn't
Crazy
matter.
people.
Yeah.
Why don't they see how amazing we are?
Right. But
Yeah.
they're just not into you, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
and you teed it up. It was T-ball for this. Like,
Yeah.
oh, great. You gave me a reason out. I was kind of already wondering, or if I was just in it for sex, or I was just in it for whatever you were going to offer me today, right now.
Yep.
You just teed it up for them. So you found that out really quick. So when you can remember those 3 things, it makes it less of a blow. It still can hurt.
Yeah.
But it's not me.
Yeah. Exactly.
not
Exactly.
the herpes virus.
Right. We don't have to take it personally because they're going to put you in a box, or they don't have the understanding, or maybe it's just not completely for them. Whatever it is, it's not saying something is wrong with us, or that we're bad or dirty or anything like that. It's something on their end for sure. And
Right.
with that said, no one likes rejection. No one likes to feel like they're not chosen. And life does not end after herpes or having one of the other STDs, because they're all over the place. And the older we get, the more people have them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And instead of switching this from, oh my gosh, if I didn't have herpes, then I'd be riding off into the sunset and I would be happily da 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 da. And we need to switch it as, thank goodness you have herpes, because you found out this person wasn't in it for you.
Yeah,
This person
exactly.
wasn't, yeah, it just shows up for you.
Yeah.
So you asked, and part of this is, how do you handle when the person's like, well, like
So how do we move forward? And do I have
teeter-tottering.
to wear a condom all the time? And is there any medication? Or
Yeah.
share a little bit about those.
So back to what I was saying about having this, like this sexual health conversation, it's a unit, it's a partnership. So that's when you and your partner get to decide how you want to work through this together. And I like to use the example of birth control, right? There comes a point in a relationship where birth control isn't that big of a deal. You're like, I'm okay if I were to get pregnant, or I'm okay if this were to happen. You know what I mean? We get to that point, or age in our life or whatever. And so it's understandable to be fearful of it. It's understandable. Of course, you don't want it. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants to pass it to somebody. Condoms prevent transmission 30 to 50% of the time. So do they work? Yeah. Do they work great?
Yeah.
And the reason why is it can be located in other parts of your body. So the condoms, it's a skin to skin transmission. It's not bodily fluid. So the condom is great for fluid. Other STDs that are fluid based. Herpes can be on another location genitally that isn't going to come in contact with the condom. So that's something to consider.
Yeah.
There is a medication you can take if you choose. And according to the FDA, it says that it lessens the transmission rate by 48%. So it does a good job of helping with that, but you also don't have to. So you don't, my husband and I, he doesn't have herpes. We've never used a condom. I'm not on the antiviral. He hasn't gotten it.
Yeah.
I communicate. I say, hey, tonight's not the night. Or, I'm just, can we wait till tomorrow? I feel a little funky, or I feel run down or something. I may be getting an outbreak. So you have to communicate. And that's why it's coming up with something with a partner. You may get in a relationship and you may say, you know what? I just feel better taking an antiviral daily. Or you may say, right now I feel better using a condom. It's just peace of mind. It's what I feel better with. So you guys decide what works for you.
I love that. And, again, it comes down to healthy communication, being in it together, being adults in it. And to be able to do that, we need to do the inner emptying out and the healing. Because if you're coming into that relationship insecure and feeling like something's wrong with you, how is that conversation going to go? It's going to be uncomfortable, and because of the fear that you might be feeling, they're going to feel the fear. They're going to sense that, whether you're saying all the right things. It's how it's being, and being able to have these conversations. And I'm so grateful for the work that you are doing, and the conversation that you're sharing. It's really powerful stuff. And you have a community, people, you were on the floor with you, now your husband, with a colleague. And now you've created an opportunity for people to find others and to have support, and you speak on it. So powerful.
Yeah. Thank you. And one of the things that I'm really adamant about is not being a victim.
Yeah.
So I referenced Eeyore. You can have your Eeyore day. You can have your poor me. Why did this happen? My glass is half empty. These things always happen to me. Have your day, have your week, whatever it is. and that's just part of the process of healing and digesting. And that's great. But what I don't want, I was there for 2 years, and I don't want people to be there for that long or longer.
Yeah, what a mission. How beautiful. So I know you have a free gift called, well, it's an ebook called Outbreak Remedies. We didn't even get into all the different things to support people. Feel free to tie both of those together. You have this ebook and you have other offerings in reference to supporting them.
Right. So we didn't really get into kind of the herpes 101, and that's great. I have tons. I think I have like over 800 YouTube videos that you can watch. I have just a repository. I mentioned earlier that in 2011, when I was diagnosed, it was very sterile when you research herpes, and I didn't want that. And that was the last thing I wanted. And that's why I call my website, my community, my blog, whatever you want, Life with Herpes, because it's life. We're not a sterile little blue figure on a textbook. So,
oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have tons of stuff if you have any questions about herpes, but specifically in this ebook, I'm talking about Outbreak Remedies. I go A to Z as well. It's 21 pages. I have written, rewritten, revised for the last 5 years, this book. And what I really like about it is it talks about nutrition. It talks about natural ways to help prevent outbreaks, natural ways to help speed up recovery. So we're not just so dependent on the prescription drug. There are some other things we can do a little more naturally that can help with it. So I put a lot into it. It's outbreakremedies.com. It's free. You can just download it.
Beautiful.
And
what a resource. Thank you.
You're
Any
welcome.
last words for this woman that might be a little scared to venture out into dating? Anything else that comes to mind?
I was going to say that, referencing when I spoke at that conference, and whoever's, if you're listening and you're like, well, I don't have herpes. There's someone that you love unconditionally that has it. That's number one. Maybe you don't have herpes, but you have something else that is equally as terrifying and suffocating. And just know that you wouldn't be given this issue, this hiccup, this bump, if you couldn't break through it. And you're meant to break through it to become that butterfly. Like it's a gift. And you're like, you're going to need hand holding, and you're going to need someone's shoulder to cry on, and that's okay. And there's so many communities out there now, like this podcast, and whatever your issue is, find a community that is like you and that can support you through it. And that's just the best thing that you can do.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Beautiful work. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing on this topic. It's so important to bring this topic out into the light, because as you said, there are so many people that have it and no one's talking about it. So thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Soul Sister, that's our episode for today. Please like and subscribe to the station. That's how we get these important messages out there into the world, and you don't miss any episodes. If you haven't taken my quiz yet, there's Discover Your Love Avatar quiz. It's in the show notes. Go find that quiz right now and see if you are a queen, an empress, or a goddess. They're all delicious and wonderful, and each one has a superpower, and each one has a challenge. And until we meet again, take good care of that precious heart of yours. Mwah.